The only one of my kind. What now? Yeah, this is what I wrote for today is May 1st, 2025. This is what I wrote about the fires in Jerusalem. I wrote on YouTube as comments. Still, this is not what I would qualify as proof for the existence of any gods. An inability to respond to our own species' attacks on the biosphere, what we are from, only proves that there are many people primates, the Homo communia, that believe in the existence of gods, as any other approach would require these land mammals with big brains, hardware, to choose to undergo an Homo sapien type of self-actualization and maturation process, operating system and software. As the doctor of humanics, I know that it is far too late for the species that I share DNA with to undertake this form of DNA potential manifestation, as their cognitive pathologies, born of a variety of human domestication syndromes, have now passed all tipping points. Indeed, it is a very challenging time in history to be the only one of my kind, Professor Marty. I recently spoke about, and I finished it yesterday, the movie from 2004, The Day After Tomorrow. And in it, you see, for example, spoiler, adults or citizens or children from every part of the USA moving to Mexico because the Ice Age came so quickly it just froze people to death. And at the end, you see who was the kind of vice president who would bring a snowflake, at work and say, how do you explain this global warming? That kind of ridiculously is now become the president, and he says, he apologizes, but he says, I really appreciate us being here. Now, in a way, what he did was he didn't die for the sins of his own self or the many, is he just apologized. And again, you go back to religion that just claims superiority in ethics and morality when it comes to just one of the collective, apologizing for something, instead of just making it up to, let's say, Mexicans, how they were treated and how their cultures were meant to devolve even further by just being indirectly affected, let's say, by the gun culture or the drug culture of the USA, right? There was one apology about one thing or two, but really there's so much for your species to apologize for, but also it's the majority of you that has to do it. It can't just be the guy on the cross is going to die for us and our sins, and as we continue them and don't plan to even stop them. So again, very likely with various forms of climate emergency is you will see refugees going on both sides of borders. So of course it's important to be on good terms with your neighbors. And a couple of years ago, I said, you'll see that there'll be a lot of wars with people from the same ethnicities, whether neighbors or not. And that's manifesting more and more right now as well. English countries in conflict or Asian countries in conflict when they have similarities. And the real, again, I have to say this, going back to, let's say, a storyline that is different in the comics than the movie of The Watchmen is, or other storylines of different movies or stories is we need to be united against a common enemy. And unfortunately, the devil probably isn't going to show up as much as you want that as proof, or extraterrestrials. It's all about the pathologies that we have is our common enemies because they're not limited by borders. When I talk about a species having cognitive pathologies because of a variety of human domestication syndromes is I talk about all of you. All of you have not manifested an operating system capable of software to be downloaded that is reason-based and that is able to adapt or learn or self-correct or become secular humanists. You're gone, and you were already set on that path before I was born. When I realized this, as I formulated my theory on HSD, which explains the devolution of my species at the hands of these varieties of human domestication syndromes, is I realize it's huge. But, and usually, somebody would fall off their chairs or commit suicide. But the thing is I'd had a hard life already up to that point where I needed to explain events of the world independent from how my life was turning out. And it turns out that theory is a grand unification theory in the social sciences, which also cured me of my own mental illnesses when I realized, oh, I'm a good person and I'm responding this way because it's the right thing to do, but I'm facing more and more obstacles among a species that is accelerating in its cognitive pathologies during my lifetime, to the point that I'll never have a comfortable life, but I will always be able to do when I go to bed. I'm proud of you, Martin. You did what your DNA was meant to do, which is, without supports from all the communities that I've belonged to, or at least a limited amount up to a certain point when even that limited amount was no longer available, I've managed to self-actualize into what my DNA intended is a fuller potential of being an Homo sapien.